Disclaimer: this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before beginning any new treatment, supplement, or peptide therapy. Today we are going to explore PNC-27, a fascinating peptide that has sparked interest for its potential role in targeting certain types of cancer cells. When we think about peptides, most of us consider them as small chains of amino acids with specific functions in the body. PNC-27 is a synthetic peptide designed with a very unique purpose in mind. Its structure is derived from a segment of the p53 protein, a protein sometimes called the guardian of the genome, combined with a membrane-penetrating sequence that allows it to reach its target effectively. The interesting thing about PNC-27 is that it was developed with the intention of binding to a protein known as HDM2, which is often overexpressed in cancer cells. By binding to this protein, PNC-27 is believed to insert into the cell membrane of the cancer cell, ultimately creating pores that may lead to cell death. This action seems to selectively affect cancer cells while leaving normal cells relatively unharmed. That selectivity is what has made this peptide so compelling in research circles. The origins of PNC-27 go back to the idea of restoring or mimicking the tumor suppressor functions of p53. In many cancers, p53 is either mutated or inhibited, meaning that its protective effects are lost. By designing a peptide that carries part of p53's sequence and equipping it with the ability to penetrate membranes, scientists hoped to create a tool that could bypass some of those defects. Now, while the science sounds promising, it is important to stress that PNC-27 is not an FDA-approved treatment. Most of the data we have comes from preclinical studies, laboratory research, and early-stage investigations. In those settings, researchers have observed cancer cell death in certain lines, including leukemia, melanoma, pancreatic, and breast cancer models. However, moving from lab findings to safe and effective human use requires many more steps. The mechanism by which PNC-27 acts is especially intriguing. The peptide seems to cause pore formation in the mitochondrial membrane of cancer cells. This pore formation destabilizes the cell's energy centers, leading to apoptosis or programmed cell death. What is even more notable is that non-cancerous cells, in many studies, appear unaffected by this process, suggesting a potential therapeutic window. The question of delivery is always central in peptide science. PNC-27 has been explored in both systemic and localized applications. Researchers have studied its effects in cell cultures and in animal models, but translating that into consistent human delivery remains a challenge. Peptides, being relatively fragile molecules, often require careful handling, specific solvents, and sometimes protective delivery systems like liposomes or nanoparticles to ensure they reach their intended targets intact. One of the more fascinating aspects is the possibility of using PNC-27 alongside other therapies. In theory, if a peptide could target cancer cells directly, it might work synergistically with chemotherapy, radiation, or immunotherapy, potentially lowering the required dose of those treatments and reducing side effects. But again, this is speculative and research is ongoing. When discussing potential applications, we also have to consider limitations. First, we need large-scale, peer-reviewed clinical trials to verify the safety and efficacy in humans. Second, peptides can sometimes be immunogenic, meaning the immune system might recognize them as foreign and develop a response. Third, issues of stability, bioavailability, and dosing all play major roles in whether a peptide can become a viable therapeutic. It's also worth noting that PNC-27 is part of a broader category of peptides being studied for oncology. Scientists are exploring many peptide-based therapies for cancer because peptides can be designed to be highly specific, often with fewer side effects than traditional chemotherapy. In this sense, PNC-27 is one of several experimental compounds, but it stands out because of its selective action against cancer cell membranes. Let's talk a little about the scientific journey. Researchers first tested PNC-27 in cancer cell cultures. They found significant cell death in a variety of cancer lines while sparing normal cells. They then moved into animal models, where similar patterns were observed. These early findings generated excitement and led to discussions about its potential as a novel therapeutic. However, the leap from animal studies to human trials is enormous, and many compounds never make it that far. Another consideration is manufacturing. Peptides like PNC-27 need to be produced with high purity and consistency. Any contamination or variation in sequence can drastically alter the effect. That is why regulatory oversight and quality control are critical steps in the development pipeline. What does the future look like for PNC-27? If research continues and clinical trials are initiated, we could see whether the peptide selectivity holds true in humans. If so, it might represent a new class of anti-cancer agents. If not, the knowledge gained from its study could still contribute to the broader field of peptide therapeutics, inspiring new designs and strategies. There are also questions of accessibility. Even if a peptide like PNC-27 proves successful, ensuring that it can be manufactured at scale, delivered effectively, and provided at a reasonable cost will be challenges. For now, it remains primarily in the realm of research, but it's a fascinating glimpse into the possibilities of peptide-based medicine. It's always important to ground our excitement in reality. The path from discovery to treatment is long and filled with obstacles. But learning about PNC-27 gives us insight into how scientists are trying to harness the precision of peptides to address one of the most difficult medical challenges of our time. As we reflect on this, consider how peptide science has expanded over the years. From metabolic regulators and neuropeptides to cosmetic applications, and now oncology, peptides continue to demonstrate versatility. PNC-27, whether or not it becomes a therapy, is part of this evolving story. Disclaimer: this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not provide medical advice. Always seek guidance from a licensed medical professional before considering any peptide therapy. Thanks for listening, keep learning, and stay curious.